Should the New York Giants move on from Dexter Lawrence? That is what we are going to be talking about in today's video because this could potentially be a big deal. Right now, obviously, Dexter Lawrence, they've been trying to work out a contract extension. They have not been able to get that done. And we've typically seen high-profile players when they request a trade. It's kind of negotiation tactics and all this kind of stuff. So what I want to do in the video is I want to give my thoughts on what I think the Giants should do. And I'll play devil's advocate. So let's say they move on from Dexter Lawrence. What should the Giants expect to get? And really what that would mean for them. But then what it would also mean to keep Dexter Lawrence around. And ultimately why I think they should pay Dexter and keep him around. So let's start with why they should keep Dexter Lawrence around. First of all, there aren't many three-time Pro Bowl 28-year-old defensive tackles sitting around that can rush the passer at an elite level, right? We know that the Giants, they've struggled to find a long-term stable head coach, and this offseason they bring in John Harbaugh, a massive name. They give him a big contract. The expectations are very high in New York, right? Because it's looking like the Giants have all of the pieces, and so far this offseason, they've done a really, really good job filling out this roster. Now, we'll have to see what they do in the draft, but the expectations are sky high, right? And you could say this past season, Dexter Lawrence, statistically, it wasn't very good. It was obviously a down year for his standards. And when you look at the Giants' defense overall as a unit, they were horrible against the run. Basically the worst team in the league against the run. So the argument could be, well, why wouldn't we trade Dexter Lawrence? We were already terrible against the run anyway. So we got this three-time Pro Bowler. Well, we were bad against the run. Can't get much worse. Right? So there is kind of an argument to that. But to me, that's kind of a lazy assessment when you talk about Dexter Lawrence as a player because Dexter Lawrence is a guy that requires a ton of attention. He is a true disruptor on the interior of the defensive line. And quite often, he is being double-teamed. So when Dexter Lawrence is being double-teamed, right, he's going to have to fight through the double. That is going to free up other players, right, especially when you're getting the pass rush going. That's going to allow these other really high-level pass rushers that the Giants have, and Abdul Carter, Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, right? It's going to have them screaming off the edge where they're most of the time going to get these one-on-one type of matchups because Dexter Lawrence requires a ton of attention. And in the run game, he's a force. He's a force, but when he's getting double teamed, other people are going to have to make a play. So while the stats say that Dexter Lawrence wasn't lighting it up, his presence is still a massive factor in the center as the anchor on that defensive line for the Giants defense. So while they were terrible against the run, what do you think that their defense is just going to get better without Dexter Lawrence? No, it's not. And this isn't a draft, in my opinion, that's super deep when it comes to true forces on the interior of the defensive line. And again, even if there is a guy that you like in the draft that you could, that you can draft and bring in, there's no guarantee that they're going to be great. And there's no guarantee that they're going to be anywhere near as good as Dexter Lawrence. Right? This is a team to me that has all of these young pieces. When we talk about the Giants, we talk about Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, the pass rush, that they have all of these young, talented pieces. And now you bring in a veteran coach like John Harbaugh. And you're looking at this going, well, they have all the potential in the world. You just need someone to come in, kind of hone it all in and unlock it. Well, losing Dexter Lawrence to me is a massive blow. A massive blow because you were already bad against the run. And by getting rid of Dexter, what do you think you're going to get better against the run? What player are you going to get in return for Dexter Lawrence? Because given the fact that he's coming up on the end of his deal, you're probably not going to get a boatload for him. Right, because the team's going to have to move capital to bring him in, and then they're going to have to give him a big contract. They're going to have to pay him top dollar pretty much as a defensive lineman, and that's what Dexter Lawrence wants to be paid, right? We're seeing, about $30 million is what it's sounding like, right? So getting rid of Dexter Lawrence, I just don't see how this helps the Giants get to ultimately where they want to go. You're losing one of your foundational pieces on the roster, one of your leaders, the anchor of your defense that frees up a lot of different things. Such an underrated thing, man. People look at the stat sheets and they're like, oh, well, Dexter had a down year, and that's lazy. Look at the tape. Look at what he's doing. Look at how many times he's double-teamed, right? Look at the linebackers, how they're able to come up and they got these one-on-one matchups. They got to fill the gaps and stop the run. It's not all on Dexter Lawrence for why the run is bad in New York or the run defense was bad in New York, right? One guy can only do so much. And that's worth something when you have an anchor like him that can take up those double teams and attract a ton of attention. And again, a guy that can rush the passer at an elite level for a defensive tackle's standards. Because when we talk about defensive tackles, people kind of look at them as guys that are just kind of plugging the gaps, stuffing the run, generating pressure up the middle. And it's really the edge rushers that are the guys that are getting there. And then some blitzes from the DBs, linebackers. But when you have a defensive tackle that can move very well for his size like Dexter Lawrence, and he can put a ton of pressure up the middle and really suffocate the pocket, that is a massive asset to have. So by moving on from Dexter Lawrence, you would lose that. So in my opinion, I feel like a lot of this is negotiation tactics. We've seen this before. Players will be like, I want to get traded. They're trying to figure things out maybe behind the scenes with a contract. This kind of makes things noisy. And then sometimes they get their way and they get a deal done. Or the Giants will say, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to move on. Our run defense was already bad. Sorry, Dexter, it's been nice, but we're going to send you somewhere else. And Dexter Lawrence, by the way, 3-time Pro Bowler, only 28 years of age. And I still think that he has a few years at least left of playing at an elite level. So he's an impact player. And I feel like when you look at the Giants, this team that, to me, very much underperformed a season ago, the expectations, man, people aren't looking at the Giants going, well, this is some team that, they'll be a little bit better than last year. Like, people are out here talking about the Giants might be a legit playoff contender this year, fighting for a wild card spot. Like, that's how people are talking about the Giants. And you think by moving on from an elite defensive tackle in Dexter Lawrence that's going to help him get closer to that goal? I don't think so whatsoever, man. I think it would be a massive mistake by the Giants to move on from Dexter Lawrence. I feel like when you talk about stopping the run, he's your anchor, he's your force, and then you got to build in behind him, right? They brought in Edmonds at linebacker, right? Bringing in some of these other guys that can come up and do a better job of stuffing the run, shifting the scheme, all those other things, I feel like are going to help the Giants do a much better job at stuffing the run. Getting rid of Dexter Lawrence will not speed up that process whatsoever. And, we can trade him and bring in draft capital. Again, you're moving a proven high-level player for unknown. That's what happens, right? It sounds great. We got a first-round pick or we got a second-rounder, and I don't know if you'd get a first-round pick for him. I don't know exactly what you would get for Dexter Lawrence at this point. I think that, you could probably get something significant. But the bottom line is you're going to be bringing in a player from college that has not shown you in the NFL. It's not to say they won't be good, but we have seen how good Dexter Lawrence is. And replacing high-level players is hard to do. And I'm of the mindset of you keep guys like this, especially at 28 years of age. The Giants are going to turn this thing around like this, man. Playoff contender or not, I don't know. I haven't really kind of decided on that, but I do think they are going to be much better than they were a year ago. And by having Dexter Lawrence around, when we talk about the Giants defense, what are we looking at? We're looking at the front. We're looking at the front. We're looking at the edge pieces that they have. Maybe they end up moving on from Thibodeau. I'm not quite sure, but you got Thibodeau, you got Abdul Carter, you got Brian Burns, these guys screaming off of the edges, right? And then you got your force in the middle in Dexter Lawrence, and with some scheme adjustments, getting the linebacking core strengthened a little bit and the back end as well, I feel like this unit is really, really going to shine this upcoming season, and losing him, a part of this basically rebuild, I think that would be a massive loss. It's not like Dexter Lawrence is 32 years of age. He's 28. I think he still has a few seasons left at least of playing at a very high level. So I don't think they should get rid of him, right? And let's say you do move on from Dexter Lawrence. What are you getting in return? What are you going to get some draft capital? Like I said, I don't think in the draft this year that it's really deep in terms of, the interior side on the defensive line. Right, so what are you going to do? Who are you going to bring in that's going to replace Dexter Lawrence? And I completely understand that argument, right? When you look at the stats, he had a down year, and it's like, well, wait a minute. You had a down year for his standards, but you're out here getting all loud about wanting a new contract. Now, this has been something that's been ongoing for the past couple off seasons, I understand that. But the Giants are probably going to sit back and say, well, what's your leverage here? We were terrible against the run, right? You're coming off of probably your worst year statistically. But to me, it's deeper than that. It's the impact that he has on the defensive lineman and the way that frees up other guys and it becomes a matchups thing. So I think it would be a big mistake by the Giants to move on from Dexter Lawrence. And believe me, there will be teams that will be ringing the Giants' phone if the Giants give any signal of we will consider moving on from Dexter Lawrence. This ain't going to work. We can't figure it out. He wants to play somewhere else. We just want to move on. To the highest bidder he goes. You don't think that there won't be several teams calling for Dexter Lawrence? Several teams like, hey, my Baltimore Ravens, man, they might be bringing the line. Some of these teams that are contenders out there that are like, man, if we could get an elite force on the interior of our defensive line, what that could do for our defense. So, but again, the caveat is you have to move the capital. You'd have to bring in Dexter Lawrence, and then you're going to basically have to pay him, assuming, right, you would trade for him, bring him in, and then you got to give him what he's asking for. So some interesting variables coming into this, but I think it would be a huge mistake from the Giants to move on from him, man. And I'm one of these guys, when you have a proven high-level player that still has light at the end of the tunnel, they still can give you a few more, at least, years at a very, very high level. Don't move on from those guys, especially if the Giants were in a complete teardown, like they're a few years away from even having a shot at competing. Then it could possibly make sense. You look at the stats, you're like, it doesn't really make sense. Let's move on from him, get that draft capital, get his, numbers off the books, free up some of the cap, and not have to worry about paying him. And then it's like, okay, we kind of can retool and rebuild. But when you're the Giants, we're looking at this going, you have all of these pieces, and if you keep Dexter Lawrence around, he is part of what makes that defense so good, and now you get rid of him, and to me, that would be a gaping hole right in the center of a defense that was already bad against the run. They brought in a couple guys at linebacker. I think that they'll draft, continue to beef up the D-line, put pieces around it as well, and at that linebacking core, and I think that that is going to be the true help when it comes to stuffing the run, because it's not all about Dexter Lawrence stuffing the run. Like, obviously, he's a massive help, but he can't do everything, right? But his responsibility as well is to take up a lot of those double teams. That's going to free other people up to come make the plays. So for me, you don't get rid of Dexter Lawrence. You just don't do it. You don't do it whatsoever. But like I said, if they can't reach an agreement, it's one of those things where you don't want him to just walk for nothing, right? You saw the Cincinnati Bengals, right? My Baltimore Ravens picked up Trey Hendrickson for he was a free agent. It's just like, we just got to pay this guy. We don't have to give up anything for him. One of the best pass rushers in the league. Sign me up. Right? So you don't want Dexter Lawrence to just walk out the door for nothing. So basically, the Giants got to figure this out. I think a lot of this is negotiation tactics, but considering where the Giants are at, how close a lot of people think that they are to being a legit playoff contender, losing Dexter Lawrence, to me, sets them back. Because when you look at the stats, they were so bad against the run. You think losing him is going to help them get any better? I don't think it does whatsoever. That was not the problem at stopping the run last year. It was the second and third levels behind that were not doing a good job, in my opinion, of coming up, filling the gaps, being able to help against the run. So those are my thoughts. I'm one of these guys, man. You don't get rid of high-level players, especially when they still have plenty of tread left on the tires to play at an extremely high level. And like I said, the Giants are not in a full-blown teardown rebuild mode. They're a team that, in my opinion, can go out here and possibly contend for a playoff spot right away. I think losing Dexter Lawrence would be a huge blow to this Giants team. But if you guys enjoyed this video, do me a favor. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you think that the Giants should trade Dexter Lawrence? Do you think that they should keep him? And if you're new, if you could subscribe to the channel, I would greatly appreciate it. I will see you next time.